Hello, I'm Dave, and I'm here with more about flavoring your meal replacements. In the first segment of this series, I told you I was working with unflavored superfuel and with Soylent 1.8. In the second segment, I told you about sweeteners, and particularly about monk fruit. I want to add a note to that now. I explained how monk fruit is so much more powerful than sugar that you need to dispense it in really tiny amounts, which are awkward to handle and hard to mix well. I said I got around this by diluting the monk fruit powder with 9 parts warm water, getting a liquor that is much easier to dispense and to mix. And I should have said then that you could do exactly the same thing with sucralose. You can buy bulk sucralose powder, but you would have just the same problems with having to dispense very small quantities. But you can make a 9-to-1 dilution and it should act very much like the monk fruit liquor I'm using. It should have pretty close to the same amount of sweetness. When you have your sweetening liquid ready, either monk fruit or sucralose liquor, you can add it to your prepared meal replacement at about 0.5% by weight. For example, a 400-calorie meal of Soylent 1.8 is 400 cubic centimeters, and you might add 0.5% of that, or 2 cubic centimeters, of the sweetener. I'll put a table in the description below to make this clearer. Let me pause here and say that I usually talk about amounts in cc's, also known as milliliters, and when you're dealing with liquids, grams. But I haven't forgotten my metric-challenged countrymen. By my experiments, a 1/4 teaspoon measure is reasonably close to 1 cc. Cc is a scant 1/4 teaspoon, or a 1/4 teaspoon is a generous cc. In a laboratory setting, we would not use words like scant or generous or phrases like reasonably close, but this isn't a lab, this is a kitchen. Anyway, 0.5% of monk fruit liquor, which would be 2 cc's or 1/2 teaspoon in a 400 cc meal, gives a light sweetness. I would compare it to the amount of sweetness you get in, say, a Nabisco graham cracker. I'm sure you've had one of those. Depending on your palate, you might want to add more sweetener. If you use 3 cc's, you get to the sweetness of a typical cookie. 4 cc's or 1% by weight gets you into the heavy sweetness of a typical ice cream. Now let's talk about some other flavors that you might have in your kitchen right now. First, common vanilla extract. You might say to me, Dave, vanilla is the first flavor that any meal replacement company offers. Superfuel comes in vanilla, so does Huel. Soylent sells cafe vanilla. Everybody has vanilla, so why mix it myself? There's a couple of answers to that. When you mix it yourself, you control the sweetness and you control the intensity of the vanilla. For my palate, Superfuel vanilla is too sweet, and Huel vanilla had way too much vanilla odor and taste. Also, maybe you don't want to have vanilla every day, but Huel or Superfuel come in multiple meal bags, 20 or more vanilla meals to eat before you can change. Now, when you do your own flavors, you can make just 1 vanilla shake and make some other flavor next time. After a few experiments, I found that vanilla requires sweetness. Vanilla by itself in an unflavored shake is like an industrial chemical. But when you add sweetness at the levels I described, the vanilla becomes very tasty. I find the vanilla extract should be added at about 1.5%. up to 2% by weight. In other words, to a 400 cc Soylent meal, you would add from 5 to 6 cc's of vanilla, which is about 1.5 teaspoons or a bit more. Go easy in your first trial. You can always add a little more, but it is easy to get to the too much level of vanilla. Another option you might find in your kitchen, certainly at your grocery store, is almond extract. Almond is a really powerful flavorant. It also needs sweetness. So add the sweetener as before, and then add no more than 0.5% almond extract by weight. So in a 400 calorie shake, add no more than 2 cc's or a scant ½ teaspoon of almond extract. To my taste, almond worked really well with Soylent 1.8. The almond and the sweetness somehow together convert that Soylent greasy undertaste into a creamy mouthfeel that I very much liked. Alright, that's it for this segment. Next time I'm going to talk about some of my experiments that have failed.